Right. I missed. Sorry, folks. I missed pressing the record button. We're having a discussion on WordPress plugins. We've talked about some free, and we've gone off about hosting and how that's important. But we've still got a lot to come, so don't worry. You haven't missed too much. And thanks, Kim, for pointing that out. So I think what we do is we go, because we tend ourselves not to use the free solutions that much. So I'll just quickly put a couple in. Here's one that definitely isn't a full solution because it only backs up the database, but it is very popular. I'll put this one in. And I think we put in the one with Dropbox that David had some experience with. And then I've also put up one that's really popular, which is Backup WordPress, like I say. So they're the free solutions. So let's go and talk to some of the paid. But I think they all come with a free version as well. Let's start with the big gorilla in the room, Backup Buddy. Who uses it and who wants to talk about it?
I use it all the time, and there's not a free version of it.
Right. So it's fully paid. So I think it's a fantastic plugin, but I don't actively use it myself. I think it starts at $80, doesn't it, Sally?
You know, I have no idea anymore because 3 or 4 years ago, when I've been a Backup Buddy customer for a few years, I won a contest that I didn't know iThemes was having, and now I have a perpetual developer license to all of their products.
Hey.
So it doesn't cost me anything to put it on all my client sites, and I use it for development and migration also.
Well, sounds fantastic. So, what about you, Dave? I think you put your hand up. You use it.
Yeah, I use it quite heavily, and they're always having sales on all of their products. So if cost is an issue, they have a coupon or two somewhere. Backup Buddy is not a perfect solution. It doesn't have a really great restore, as Sally mentioned, but it has a lot of flexibility in where you send your backups to. So you can send them to Dropbox, to your own server, emailed to you, to AWS. They have their own service called Stash, which is what I use. So it's basically their own, I believe they're running on AWS, but it's their own system to make it easier to make backups. They now have a newer feature called Stash Live, which makes the load of using it a lot easier. Basically, it looks for changes on your server, and then it only backs up those changes. So you've uploaded a new image and added a new post, then it's only going to pull those two things into your backup. And it can be running perpetually, so theoretically you're not very far behind on your updated site. And I'm also bought into their ecosystem, so it's really great to be able to say I want to use iThemes Sync to manage my site, and I can use the backup tool straight from Sync. Or I want to use iThemes Security, but I can use their backup tool right before I make any security changes.
That sounds good. Are there anything about it that you don't like, Dave?
I agree that the ability to do quick restore would be really great.
It's improved a lot of stuff in its restore functions, depending on what you want to restore. So you can restore things selectively, I'm not sure. I started using the Stash Live, which takes a snapshot, which on something like GoDaddy will take you for flippin' ever. But once it's backed up to your whole site, then it runs the little incremental bits. It is pretty resource intensive, which is why places WP Engine don't let you use it. I think they came out with this alternative to do the continuous incremental backups, which is basically what you get if you use automatic vault press system is also continuous incremental backups. But I've had to restore a bunch of sites from Backup Buddy, and it's pretty quick, and it doesn't require a whole bunch of manual stuff like most of the free systems. It's not instantaneous. But not that many backup restore options are completely instantaneous.
No, they're not, depending on the site.
Even outside of WordPress.
Say that again. I think that was great that both of you, because I think me and John, it's a great product from a great company. I wouldn't have any hesitation in recommending it, but it's not what I use. And I don't think John uses it. So I'm going to ask John maybe to talk about the link I put in for the product that I use myself, Updraft Plus, or one of the products that I use. So I think you use this, John, don't you? So
I do use this.
Can you explain what it is and your experience with it?
So basically, Updraft Plus is it's the same. It's a similar thing of what we've been talking about. It takes a snapshot of your whole site, your database, your uploads, your themes, your plugins, all that. The one thing I would say with the that's cool about this is I believe that the pro version has restore features. The free version, you can back it up to one external source. I usually back mine up to Dropbox. But what's cool about this is it'll break the downloads, like when it's downloading your site, it'll break it into chunks. So if you have a very large site, it's not as resource intensive maybe as some other solutions. The thing with the free version of Updraft Plus is you can do manual backups, or you can schedule them. If you're looking for something that's more current, like real-time updates, then you would want to choose something like WordPress as opposed to like Backup Buddy or Updraft Plus. So
yeah, that's great, Paul. With the free, because obviously I've got the developer version, so I haven't used the free version, but I do give it to people. When they advise me. Do you know, John, does the free version allow you to do a restore?
I haven't had to restore anything yet. So I believe so. Yeah, I believe it does. So
yeah,
let me check.
Yeah, you check, and I'll tell them something more about. Oh, do you want to say something? Oh, thanks, Kim.
The challenge with the free version allows you to restore beautifully if all you need is the database, themes, or plugins. But if something happened and your whole WordPress site is gone and you've got to roll back to the former installation, you have to go in, install the old version of WordPress manually, because your host has probably now uploaded that one-click thing. And then you go in, copy it in, and restore everything else. So it does add some things that, for example, that's one of the things I love with Backup Buddy. It automatically has everything there. And if I restore it, I copy it over, run a PHP file, and boom, it's done. I use both of them, both Backup Buddy and Updraft Plus, just depending on which site and which customer I was working with.
Yeah, I think that's great. Thanks for that. My experience with it, but also it's like Backup Buddy. I think they've improved some of the with that, like what Sally said about Backup Buddy. With Updraft, there was a couple of things. It didn't always restore your image library. I think they've improved that.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, and I'm not sure it covers both of these paid equally. It sometimes didn't restore the widget areas totally consistently. Sometimes it put the widgets back, sometimes it didn't. Is that your experience, Kim?
I haven't had the problem with the widgets. I have had the problem with the images. And then I too pay for the premium, because you have to have the premium if you want to be able to use it to copy sites to other locations. So a lot of times I'm doing that, especially if I'm going to do a big membership site behind something. I'll copy it over and play with it offline. And the free version won't let you do that. You have to go to the premium for that.
Yeah, but I think they've improved it now. So the image transfer is pretty good. Is that been your experiences, John?
Yeah, like I said, I haven't had, knock on wood, I haven't had to restore one using Updraft before with Backup Buddy. I used that like a couple of years ago, and that one works pretty easily once you kind of figure out the instructions. That one's not bad. Updraft, I haven't had to restore anything yet.
Rightio. I think we could talk about a third one that I used a couple of years ago, but I still think it's pretty popular, and that's BackWPub. I'll put the link in. Do any of you know anything about that and you've used it recently or got anything to say about it?
I haven't used it.
I've used a BackWP plugin. I'm not sure it's that same one. I'm clicking on their pro link to see whether it takes me to. Yes. Okay. And I used it basically before I discovered Backup Buddy. So I'm sure it has a lot more, features and so on now. But it looks, just reading the list, as though you still have to use PHP-MyAdmin or a similar tool to make your restores, which seems like a big oversight in a paid plugin.
Yeah, I like I say, I haven't used it for a while, so I thought, but it's still popular. They do a pretty functional free version, and then they got the pro version. I think, from my memory, and I might be totally wrong, it's from a German developer.
Yes.
Oh, thank God, because that was just coming from my memory banks, folks. I still think it's pretty popular, but I think the two big gorillas at the present moment is Backup Buddy and Updraft Plus, really. Would you agree with that panel, or are there some other paid plugin solutions that I haven't mentioned?
I'm not sure where WordPress stands in the backup popularity. How many people are using it versus other things.
I actually have somebody.
But that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But I know WordPress is one of the solutions that the managed hosting companies who don't let you use things like Backup Buddy will permit you to use.
So I was actually going to go on to that. You must have read my mind, Sally. I was going to go on to the next section, which I call services. I don't know if David, are you still with us, or has he gone complete? My co-host,
I think he bailed.
He bailed. Oh, we bored him.
He had to go.
You had to go. Right. Do you want to rejoin us, Kim, for a little while? If you want to, that would be great. So let's go on. Let's talk about. All right, the lawn guys arrived. All right, and so it's the three of us. But if anybody wants to join us, got any questions, please do. So let's go on to what Sally was saying. Let's go on to WordPress. Another big gorilla in it. Got any experience with it, Sally and John?
I tested it when it first came out, and my big problem with it at that time was that it didn't do multi-site, which it does now.
That was a bit strange, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, I suppose, it's, I remember, Pippin Williamson said that he develops all of his plugins on multi-site so that he knows they will work with it. And, that seemed like a pretty good approach. And I think it's a good solution for some people. One of the reasons that I didn't adopt it once they solved the multi-site problem was that, even when I was paying for Backup Buddy, it was a better deal for me financially to use Backup Buddy than to pay monthly for WordPress.
Yeah, it's great. What got any experiences with it, John?
No, but I do have a client that this is actually perfect for because they need more real-time backups. And it's been an eventful week. I'll just leave it at that. So anyway,
all right.
Yeah. So I'm about to have some experiences with it. Yeah.
He's had one of my weeks, folks.
Yeah. Yes.
So I've had a month, but it's calming down a little bit. I had a bit of up yesterday from somebody, but my thoughts about it. Obviously it's a superb service. It was quite expensive. They've offered more flexibility. They've got the basic now, haven't they? And the price structure's gone down a bit. And like what Sally says, it now supports multi-site. And also, like what Sally said, a lot of people look at it because there's certain hosting providers for their own legitimate reasons that won't let you use some of the plug-in solutions like Backup Buddy and Updraft Plus. But like I say, they have reduced the price. But what you've got to do, they've got this basic, and then they've got the full.
They also have a light version that does just backups and not like the spam protection, et cetera. And that one is $5 a month.
Thanks for that. I forgot about that. That was great.
I just found it by going to their website.
Yep.
I hadn't heard of it before, but let me drop
They have
the
a
link.
little,
you're right.
They have a little tiny link that says, "Do you only need like this?"
That's why I forgot.
A little teeny weeny link, barely visible.
You saved my bacon there, Sally, because
Yeah.
I did know about that, but I forgot this morning, and they hide the link. Talk about hide it. That's understatement, isn't it? But it's there. So I think that's all. So what does that do? What does it say it does, Sally?
It says daily backups, automated restore, 30-day backup archive, and safekeeper support, whatever that is. And if I go back to the main page, basically the thing that you get that you don't get on the light one is spam protection, which is basically, your Akismet subscription. So, if you already had a Akismet subscription that you were paying for, you probably wouldn't want the version with the spam protection anyway.
Yeah. Well, it all sounds that's something you've got to look at. But like what Sally said, you're going to really have to read the different versions and what they're offering, and then make a choice. But like I say, it's a great product. Obviously, it comes from a great company. You just got to. I haven't got any live in the field experience about how effective it is. I'd be surprised if it doesn't do a pretty good job. Would you agree with that, Sally?
I believe it does. I remember Anka testing it out, and there was something she mentioned that was an issue, and I can't remember what it was. And for all I know, they've fixed it. But she really liked that kind of instant restore, ongoing feature. The fact that they're covering your site every 5 minutes, and you can see if you're developing something is really active. It might make a big difference. A lot of my clients, once I have built the site, they add content every 10 days if we're lucky, once a month. There aren't actually a lot of changes on the site, so I change my backup schedules from the very frequent backups I'm making while I'm building the site to something that's less frequent, but often enough that there's still going to be something current to restore to if there's a problem of some kind. So it's, I'm not sure how much value those people would get out of a continual backup solution. But if you're looking at a site that gets lots and lots of comments, or, where you post frequently, or where you're doing e-commerce, or, there are a lot of situations in which your data particularly is changing very frequently. And you want to make sure you have whatever is backing you up is either doing, continually and incrementally, like VaultPress or the Stash Live service from Backup Buddy, or it's doing it very frequently so that you would not lose, more than half a day's data if something went wrong.
That's great. What about you, John? Any actual experience with it?
Like I said, not yet, but it's
coming.
It's coming soon. Get back
right,
to me
on
in
to
a little bit.
Yeah, that'd be great. So on to one that I use with Updraft with my clients, which is VaultPress. Got any knowledge of that, Sally? VaultPress.
I think we were just talking about that, dear. I think you might be thinking of something else.
You're thinking of Blog Vault.
Black Vault, yeah. Oh, sorry, my mind's gone to there. Go. Thanks, Sally. It's been a busy week. So there we go. We're going to put the link in. There we go. And that's Blog Vault.
Oh gosh, I tested that in 2010, maybe. It's probably changed so much since then that whatever my experience was completely irrelevant.
That's right. Have you got any recent experience with it, John?
No, you're actually the person that introduced me to this. So I think
Great company, great technical support. It's got some great features. It's got there's different data levels. If you go over certain data, they give you so much room where you can store as many backups as you want. It's continuous backup like WordPress. They offer a one-click restore of everything. It works. They also got a jet. And also they offer a restore site. So if you're testing plugins or something, they offer a URL, and it's a full copy, and you can try things out. Great technical support. Love it, folks. I would highly recommend it. They are based in India, folks, but I've always got good support from them. Very helpful, very quick. I like it. Would highly recommend it. We use it for clients. We've got a developer's license. We set it up. And also we use Updraft as well. We have multiple backups. Basically, I'm a backup nut because when people are giving me money, and something goes really bad, they expect that we can do what we say we can do. So we got to have multiple backup solutions. So have a look at it. Unfortunately, if anybody's got any experience with it and wants to to comment, please either put something in chat or come in. We'd love to hear from you. But you two haven't seen the light yet, have you?
I haven't looked at it for a long time, and I know I looked at it at one point, but I'm wondering if I'm mentally confusing it with something else, because there was a blog backup service that would back up not just WordPress blogs, but Blogger blogs and other kinds of blogs, which would be one thing to differentiate it for those people who haven't seen the light of WordPress yet. But this looks like it's WordPress only, and the one thing that I noticed jumps out in their FAQ and comparisons and things is that they say that it's good for use on very large sites.
One thing I've got to research it. One thing I've got to find out is, does it support multi-site? I might not have looked into that actually, because I haven't had one actually. I suppose if it came to the case and he wanted it, we'd just get WordPress, but I'm going to have to check that actually to be truthful about it. Maybe I did, and it's left my memory banks.
Right, and I do notice with Backup Buddy that there have been times when I've needed to exclude some of the uploads from a Backup Buddy backup because just hundreds of images get to be it starts to choke on that. So it sounds like Blog Vault might be a better solution if you've got a site where you want to back that up, and there might be some reason why your earlier version of those uploads is not going to be sufficient. You really need to be able to get it all at once.
Yeah, and they've got some new plans coming out pretty soon. They are coming out pretty soon, which are unlimited. But we all know that unlimited never is unlimited. So I'll be.
Yes, it says at the very bottom of the fact that it works.
Oh, great! I should learn to read, shouldn't I? No, it's been. I have so much going on that at least I can laugh at myself, Sally, can't I? On to another one. Code Card. Any of you got any experience with this one?
This is the first time ever hearing of it.
No. Yeah, I'm not sure whether I've even bookmarked that. Let me check. No, apparently not. I'll add that to my WordPress services bookmarks.
I haven't used it recently, but I have used it with clients, and it's been around quite a while. I'm not sure if they just solely deal with WordPress. I think they deal with any website. But it works. It's good value. The base product is $5 a month. One website, unlimited databases up to 5 gig, daily backup monitoring, email support. And then it goes up to, there's a bit of a jump. It goes up to 39, 79 and upwards. But it's a reputable company, and the storage, 5 gig, that's pretty low. What do you think the kind of average client you're dealing with? I know there's no such thing as the average client, Sally, but what do you think their size website when you're using a backup is normally?
For most of my small business sites, the site itself is certainly a lot less than 5 gigs. So it's kind of like, how many backups are you? How many backups are you storing? But yes, for the great bulk of my clients, the lowest price plan would be sufficient.
And you get plenty. It is a bit of a jump, but you get 50 gig then. So, but I haven't used it for a while. But then that's annual. You've got the month to month as well. I was looking, which they don't offer on the base. You've got to go for the yearly. That's one thing. But it is only $5. So it's not going to, you're going to have to pay for the yearly thing up front, but it's not going to bankrupt you. The others you can pay monthly. And then they've got 2-year, 3-year commitment deals as well. So there's a lot of price choice. And it is a reputable company, folks. I just haven't used it.
Yes, and they do apparently have a free version. It says here under the pricing, free daily backups, 1 website, 1 database, 1 gig of storage. If it's a really small site, that would probably do it.
Yeah, I think that's maybe I need to set that up and give it a test. Really, I might do that over the weekend because, like I say, I know people that use them, and they're a really reputable company. So I thought everything I've tried to bring up today, folks, even if I'm not using it myself, I knew bringing the crew on that we probably would be able to cover most stuff. But I think everything I've talked about comes from reputable developers and companies, and I wouldn't really be that worried recommending anything that we talked about. Would you agree with that, Sally? Oh, she's gone. She's going to come back. What about you, John?
Yeah, you're recommending reputable companies. You're not recommending fly-by-nights. So.
Oh, browser crash. Well, I hope you're using Chrome, Sally. You need to come back. We need you. I would log out and knock on the door again. So, how are you going to continue this, John? Got anything else that you would add?
To like backups, I think that's like most major players. And like David said, make sure that you got remote storage. Like Sally and obviously you want to be able to restore quickly and not have to do like a whole bunch of developer, as little as possible,
Yeah, Sally, would you agree though? Do you get this conversation where a customer says, well, I'm backed up, my hosting provider backs up?
No, I never, I don't think I've ever had that conversation, because one thing I do on, I put Backup Buddy on all of the sites that I build, and I back their sites up to my S3 storage, and it costs me, less than $1 a month for storage of the backups of all of my clients and my own sites. So they get backup, whether they've thought about it or not, because it's going to make my life easier if something goes wrong on their site and needs to be fixed.
Yeah, that basically updraft we save to Amazon, or if the client's a bit, we also normally set up a 2 gig free if they haven't got. Well, we'd still do it because they can fill in their regular. We normally set up a separate 2 gig Dropbox and with 2 gig, and if it will take, if it's not too big, we'll bung it in there, and give them at least 2 months version there. But we also stored to Amazon, and then we used Blog Vault as well, and then we do physical downloads every 6 months. So we have multiple. So I think somebody in general, I think you've got to have one kind of backup. I think just relying. Do you think using, if you're somebody and you want to do all this yourself, just using Backup Buddy or Vault or Updraft, and then just relying on your hosting backup, do you think that's enough?
I don't know that you necessarily need more than one place to put offsite backups. But obviously, the more backups you have, the safer you are. So, if you've got multiple places you can store backups of the same stuff, it's probably a good idea. And, it's sort of like, well, how important is it to you? How much difference is it going to make? If something goes down and it takes more time to restore, and you can't, maybe you just can't access your, one of those places to get the backup. But I've never had an actual situation where both my site failed and my backups failed.
Great. One thing I would point out to folks is something we do. We've got a Security account, agency account. Is that when we take over, and I think you should do it yourselves, folks, if you're doing this yourself, is that your site can get compromised, and they're not one of these compromises where they shout about it. They don't actually want you. So it's a good idea with the Security Free plugin. You can do a malware scan. It's not as advanced as their paid services, but it's still very effective. Is to periodically do a scan. Just because what can happen, folks, is you're not aware that your site's got compromised and all your backups have been compromised because you're doing. It's not a site that you regularly are changing, so you only do a backup once a week or twice a month or monthly, and those backups get compromised, and you actually got no backup that's not been compromised. So keeping that in mind, folks. Would you agree with that, John?
Absolutely. You want to have remote backup and a way to restore. So
yeah, would you agree with that, Sam?
Yeah, my hosting company does a security scan for me every week and gives me a report. And also there is a security scan built into Backup Buddy, so you can go. They have their sort of server tools, and you can go and scan your server before running a backup. So yeah, I mean, cleaning up a hacked site is nobody's idea of a good time. So you do want to be maintaining security and aware if something goes wrong. Because
yeah, I think the other factor that most people don't understand is that some of the worst security breaches are people that are not going to announce that they've managed to crack your site, and it's the ones that actually put all stuff over your website or make it pretty evidence that they've cracked it, and not actually normally the ones that you should be most concerned about. It's the ones that don't announce that they've managed to get into your site that you've got to be concerned about. That's what my experience, trying to clean up some of the more serious people that have done that. But it varies. But there's a lot of choice, isn't there, Sally? And there's a lot of that's one of the great things about WordPress, isn't it?
Yes, and so it's less important, what tool you use for things like security scans than that you do it.
Right then. So, what do you think? Got anything you'd like to finish with, Sally, on the subject of WordPress and backup, or do you think we have extensively covered this topic?
I think we've covered it pretty thoroughly.
Right. What about you, John?
Yeah, totally. I think we've covered it. I have good hosting, remote backup, easy way to restore, and I have a schedule, for backing up.
Before we go on to the next thing, obviously, hopefully some of our guests have got some websites that some of the people that are listening to this have got some websites that you want us to review, or they've got some problem or something. Otherwise, we might end this shortly, but we're here. I would kind of finish the bit about backup is that make sure it's always also a good idea that you recover. You have some way of testing your backup. Basically, on your server, WP Engine got a fantastic restore, a dual website system. So you got kind of mirror of your website. It's a one button. You can make a subfolder on your server. WordPress provide, but the only thing is not on the actual same server as your live website. But you can make a subfolder, put a copy in, make sure it's not indexed by Google and the other lead engines, and then you can do you could try out things on that, and it'd be on the same server system. But I think WordPress. But the main thing is, if you've got a copy, is have some scenario. Obviously, not on your live website because but have some scenario where you test that that you can restore, and it will.
Yes, it's certainly good. Anytime you're checking out a new backup product, test or restore. Just use it on a disposable development site. Test the backup and restore it to make sure it works. Because the time you don't want to find out that the restore is screwy, at the time when it's a client site you're
It's
restoring.
nothing worse, is there? There's no point doing all this, folks, and thinking you're safe, and then when it comes to the moment of need, you find that you can't restore it. It won't restore you. That's a bit of a disaster, isn't it, Sally?
Yes.
Would you agree, John?
Yeah, you want to have a staging environment or a disposable dev environment where you can test before you push stuff to live, the same as you would as if you were developing a live site. You want to test the backup and make sure that it's not, make sure that the data all has integrity.
Right. So I don't think we got any questions.
Yeah, I've been watching the chat.
Just we got words of wisdom,
Yeah.
Sally. It does vary, Sally. We had quite a few people last week, didn't
That's
we, John?
okay.
We had a few questions, didn't we? Maybe if about. I'm sure you haven't bored them, Sally. Well, I'm sure listening to me blabbing on about
It's not the sexiest topic, but it is extremely
one
important.
of the most.
It saved when I wasn't doing this. It was more formal. I was just doing development, having backups of clients' websites, but I got to be truthful. I found it a bit stressful when I was a developer trying to fin, because for various reasons. So, are there any websites that have taken your eye during the week that you want to share the URL? Is anything that caught your eye?
I'm mostly just looking at the sites that I'm working on. One of which is a project where I'm in the middle of doing the content audit, and I'm up to about 400 blog entries so far, and there's still a ton of content to do to find the link, the title, the categories and tags, and then how we want to rearrange them because they were applied more or less at random. Additional taxonomies, notes about stuff that's broken or whatever. The meta title and meta description and so on, and just going through and through that. And it's tedious, but it's also really illuminating. I've discovered all kinds of things about the site and about the client that I wouldn't know if I weren't going through every bit of content this way. So far I'm back to 2011. I don't think the site gets that much older, but I figure there'll probably be at least another 100 blog posts.
Yes, that's quite a job, but it's an important job because in SEO, I know I've never done anything like that, but it's really important.
You have to set up
the
redirects from the old site to the new site if you want them to maintain any Google juice that they have. But it's also one thing I discovered is a whole bunch of stuff on their blog that's not blog posts. It's press releases, it's presentations. It's so it's kind of like I need to do this to figure out how many different custom post types to create for the new site, and then how to classify them. So it's this work that you do up front seems like, oh God, we're taking a long time to get off the ground. But I have been in situations where, I discovered this after the fact, and having to go back, later when you realize that you actually needed something totally different is a lot more work.
Like Sally,
Truer words
just
were
been
not said.
kind
What
of
about you,
really
John? Any
heads
sites
down
you want to share?
and just doing my
caught
own
your
work
eye?
and stuff like that. I can definitely share stuff that's like, that I worked on like recently that went live. Okay. Sure.
Yeah, give us a link
Yeah,
to
if you
that.
want. There's hardly anyone here.
Folks,
Now, I
we're
will.
going to keep this going for another 10 minutes. If it doesn't, John's going to show us something he's been working at. And then if you've got any questions, folks, we continue. But if we don't get any questions or there's no websites you want us to look at, Sally's really a very experienced WordPress front-end developer consultant. She's looked at loads of websites. John is really experienced. I've had a few years in this game.
Yep.
When you're looking at a site, folks, a lot, you become blind to the obvious. Yep. It's always useful. We're not vicious. Sally, I might be. I'm English, but Sally's not vicious, and John's definitely not vicious. So having some experienced eyes looking over a website is useful. We're doing this free for you as well, which you normally would be paid for. If you've got any WordPress problems or questions, you can just come on and ask us. We're not saying we've got all the answers, but we do have.
Oh yes. So anyway, I'm going to drop this in now. I'm going to preface this and say this.
So
is
you want to
like
hit
one
away
of the
with a website
ones where I did a collaboration.
Doing, John?
It was really like in this project, I basically just did the WordPress development. I didn't have a hand in the design. I don't own the client relationship. This is one of the ones where I subcontract out to like larger agencies. So this one just went live. I actually did the build on this. Probably like 5-6 months ago. But it just went live. So yeah, they're a really good outfit. Actually, they're a really good outfit.
Nicely
in
done.
Jersey. They're blown up big. I do a lot of stuff for them.
Nice work.
Yeah, they seem to be doing okay.
So do you want to describe some of the things that you really like about it that can apply to other people, the things that you think in layout and in some of the things we've discussed over the last few weeks when we've been reviewing other people that you think?
Well, one of the things I like is that it makes it very clear where you go depending on what kind of customer you are.
And let me say that too. Like a lot of this is a lot of these builds, from my end when I'm working with other people, it is kind of like learning like how like the information, the content is actually, segregated and stuff like that. And so this is kind of a common thing. There are like customer segments, on this with like retail, wholesale, catering, and stuff like that. And then, and so there is like kind of sub pages for like each one that kind of have like, kind of a template like layout. But definitely there's like a lot of pages where it's a specific like layout. And a lot of this is done with just advanced custom fields. And this is like totally custom built, from the ground up. So just is a lot of stuff that I do, especially like with larger projects. I usually just use underscores.
Do you use a starter theme or
build these out? So
yeah.
And I'll throw in another one that I did for the same people, really quick. I have like.
Was there any particular?
Yeah, so I think about that one like on the blog
that
page.
Was unusual. Normally, is there with any website?
It's weird when you do like custom themes. It's like sometimes the things you think that will be easy are the things that are hard, and the things you think will be hard.
I have run into that before. Yes, it seems like it.
Like on this one, I think it's spent like. It was like trying to figure out like the select button here. we want that to look pretty much consistent in all browsers. So it was just like figuring out or looking up like how to do this. Basically, you have the background with like the little down arrow, but to make it like the same in all browsers, you basically have like a wrap around like the visible area, and then the actual select area is like pushed further out, and then you hide it with like overflow hidden. Or I believe that's what that is, because the browsers like have their own styles. Yeah.
Right. The drop down is a little wider.
So
than
where's
the,
is that?
A lot of their,
are we talking
a lot
about
of their
where's
custom
the
the
category?
block
just
area?
like breaking
Drop
down
down.
each page.
All right.
And it's really weird when I usually do like themes
All
like
right.
this. Most people start with a home page and then go in. And how I generally do it is go from like the most like atomic units, like say a single blog page view, or like or say if it's like a single staff member or whatever, what have you, and work out, because there's usually patterns in this that repeat. And by going from the inside out, it's like easier to kind of wrap my head around those styles as I'm building out. And usually a home page is what the last thing I do.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Do you design? Because I don't. When I was doing some development, front end development myself, it was mostly taking things and knocking them around. But I did some, but when I was doing it, it was like I did the desktop, and then I maybe looked at adapting it for the phone. Where most
so if I'm
people go
working
from
like on my own
mobile
thing,
phone
I
to
kind of like
desktop.
tackle the
Which way
phone
do you
and the
work
desktop
normally?
view at the same time. Now, when I'm working with like other people, there's usually more of a waterfall thing going on. Or,
Right.
or even if it's like, agile development, people just generally lay out like what they're looking at, which is a desktop view. And then, the mobile styles are usually on whoever's developing. And it's up to you to kind of make decisions. And then usually what happens in that case is a lot of times, a lot of people, a lot of designers, not just like one, but like many, they'll usually, have an idea of the mobile style, like how the menu is going to look and how it's going to open and interactive elements and stuff like that. And so it's like, okay, that's usually toward the tail end of the build. So.
Yeah, I'm trying to persuade the designer that I work with to start to do mobile first design for the clients, because we run into so many problems where the client wants something that works on the desktop view and is darn near impossible to translate effectively into a mobile view. And so I've got something I'm working on now where for some reason cats are fighting. For some reason, he did not want to put the logo in the header. He put the logo in the first image on the homepage. And there's just a tiny little sort of icon version of the logo in the header. Well, it's off to the left there. And so as the screen shrinks, the logo cuts off, and he's, complaining about this. I'm like, look, the designer tried to talk you out of doing your logo that way. And now you know why. And if you were looking at design starting with the narrowest screen, you just wouldn't make those mistakes. It's really hard for the designer to wrap her head around, and even I don't automatically think that way myself, but it does actually make it much easier to do. And I think the way you think about things in very small modular elements, John, is helpful for that, because if you're dealing with these little things, then you can lay them out horizontally, you can lay them out vertically, but you have a kind of a basic block unit that by itself will fit on any screen.
Looks good to me. So what was there, so Sally, I'm sure John won't mind. So looking at it initially, what's your reaction to it in usability and in design and the key messages that they're trying to get across?
I think
What's
it's
your
quite
initial
clear.
impression,
I
Sally?
like the fact that the fonts are all a good size, but also the messages in each section are clear, and everything seems to be working. Let me just pop up the responsive view and see what it looks like. So yeah, the menu works out there.
Well, you can see that it's been done by somebody,
right? Like
that
the
knows what they're
slider
doing.
still
There's
looks
the little
good at.
That's often the hardest
320
part.
pixels.
So let me just say that, like, for
the
people who do like theme development, it usually like sliders is like the hardest thing to get to like be mobile friendly. That's usually like a lot of.
Oh, I had one that I had to do that was just nuts. Let me.
For sliders, usually I
Is there
find
one
myself going
particular
back
one that you
to
like
use like
to
Soliloquy
use?
and Royal Slider. Those are like the two that I really use. I know that like a lot of these pre-bought games, they have Revolution Slider. It's really complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh God! Just number one, just don't put
Yeah.
it in your theme, and number two, the overhead on that is just nuts. So
Well, old Sakiri, I never pronounce it correct. That was done by old Griffin, wasn't it? Of Optim Monster, didn't it?
I can't remember who makes Soliloquy. I've used Metaslider a lot and liked it, but apparently Chris Lemma just did a survey of basically overhead on sliders, and apparently Soliloquy is much more slower load time. So I've just put a site into a link into the chat for this site with a killer slider. So what the client wanted was something where you had image tiles, each with a different link, and you had to be able to manually choose the images. So it wasn't something where it would just like pull the featured image from a bunch of different things and tile them. They needed to just very specific images to be in very specific places, and then each set of 4 tiles was a slide. And so I did this.
Oh no, I see.
I think you tried to explain it.
If you just look at it, you'll see how it works.
Right.
And it's pretty, but it turned out to be, I had this really sort of Frankenstein solution. So the tiles are done with the WP Tiles plugin, and the slides are done with Slick. And I ran into an issue where at some screen sizes and some browsers, the spacing around the slider was all screwy. And I had somebody who's better at JavaScript than me troubleshoot it and basically change the script loading order to make sure that the container for the tiles finished loading before Slick started to kick in. So that one was especially challenging to do, and in some cases we had problems with making sure you could click the arrow and not the slide and not the tile on mobile screens.
And I noticed you made the, I don't know if it was the client or which is a lot of people doing. You're using the mobile menu structure.
They wanted it. They actually they wanted to have the regular menu on the homepage and the and the hamburger menu everywhere else, but that just turned out it was difficult to implement, and it didn't look nice. So we ended up using the hamburger menu, and that's the Superside Me plugin.
I love it. I think it's a really nice. But what's your thoughts about that decision, Sally? Do you what do you actually think about using a mobile menu structure on the desktop
there are a number
view?
of sites that hide the menu, and I don't think it's necessarily ideal for usability. I was the one who insisted that we put the word menu next to the hamburger because studies have been done to show that some people that the hamburger menu has been around for a while. A lot of people understand what it is, but a lot of people still don't. So if you put the word in there, it really helps people to know what they're supposed to get.
Because I can tell you, this is a bit of a bubble, this world. I do love the WordPress community in general. I've had some people that have not been great to me, but in the majority of people have been really very nice to me in the WordPress community. But it is a bubble, because I also deal my other business that I'm trying to develop. I deal with real estate agents and brokers, and it's a total different world, really. What is obvious?
Yes, things
like you say,
start to seem obvious to you when you do them all the time, and you don't understand that they are not actually obvious to everybody.
No. But you're right to insist on that menu. I'm in total agreement. I think having the word menu there, I think it's totally acceptable to have that. It's when they don't have any kind of clue at all, Sally, that I think it's not so obvious to the people that are not obviously using these on mobile.
So then
all the time.
we actually have other sliders. If you go into the projects, and I'll just drop a direct link to one of them to make that easier to locate, although it's the site isn't that deep, but there. So if you go into one of the individual projects, which are a custom post type with a lot of custom fields, but at the very top there is a meta slider implementation to show you different different slides of all the projects, and then. That worked pretty well out of the box. I did a little tinkering to make sure I would get the correct number of thumbnails across without any of them being cut off, and then it's got a whole ton of custom fields in it for the project type and the project team, and then there's a field where you put the video in, and then there's a related post relationship field that pulls in any news items that have been tagged for that particular property.
That's really nice. Was there, in general, both you and John, what's your feelings about sliders in general?
I got an email from one of those, Deals R Us kinds of places, and it said everybody loves sliders, and I was tempted to write a blog post saying, like, where have you been? A lot of clients still like them, and they have their place. I mean, it's an effective way if what you're doing is displaying a bunch of images. Sliders and slideshows have their place, but all of these studies have been done showing they don't convert well, they're bad for accessibility, they're bad for performance, so you want to really think about how you're using them and whether whether that's an effective way, because and also I really hate sliders that slide automatically, and because movement pulls your eye away from everything else on the page. So unless that's the only thing on your page, you don't want it to move automatically. Most of the default times on sliders are too short. You can't read any of the text before it slides past. So there are a lot of issues with them, and you see a lot of not very good implementations, and so you should really think about whether a slider is the best way to do what the client is trying to accomplish.
I think they have their place sometimes. I mean, definitely like on these project pages, that would be like a good use of a slider because you're trying to show like more views of the property. So that makes sense. But I think like a lot of times, you know, say like on homepage or something like that. I think it's just people do it because they see it other places. Because studies do show that people don't click. I mean, if they're going to click on anything in the slider, it's going to be the first slide. And most people aren't like staring at the slider for like 20 seconds, waiting for like the second and third slide. Only developers do that. Like, you know what I'm saying? No, that's great.
Well, yeah. Well, what my thing is, it's a bit like how Sally's used it for the internal pages. I think it's totally I think that's totally appropriate. Where I think, and it always comes from clients mostly, is that one of the things they've got to understand is it's taken up a lot of.
Yeah, it's a huge amount of screen real estate, and if it's something that if it's something that isn't going to convert and get people to do what's, I think that's part of why design trends have moved more toward having a big hero image with a call to action. And right, so there's nothing, the image is not busy enough to distract you from the call to action, which is what your eyes should be focusing on.
I've got another question. I noticed with both
Parallax.
websites. I always get this. I always pronounce it incorrect. Though. Let's have a go.
Parallax.
Sorry, folks. You've both decided on the designer, or you're building these with a team and blah blah blah. But I noticed that both of these really, both very nice looking projects. Well worked out. But you both. It was decided not to go down that route. I just wanted to ask you there, because it's coming from my biases, because I just think that
it's an overused trend, but it also can be hard to work with. So there's a site that I'm working on now, the same one with the logo off to the side. And the theme that they chose that they really like has parallax applied to every section that has an image background. Well, fine, but you have to understand that it's going to cut the top and bottom of your image off if it's not, and it has that slide past effect, and it does, it's going to mean that things, you can't control things in the same way that you would if they were just images. Parallax decides where the positioning of that background is. And
I link it to, I probably not got the term right, so I link it to this metaphor, this continuous scrolling one page model, where all the data is just shown in one page and it just continues.
Yeah, well, I think there's definitely a place for one-page themes, and you certainly don't have to use parallax on them. And I think people like it because you get sort of an effect as it scrolls, and a lot of people put way too much animation and bouncy flashiness in sites, and I don't think it's necessarily especially helpful. I do think that, especially given that so many people are going to be looking at your site on a mobile device, having a one-column layout on your homepage that gives you, kind of all the highlights of what you're going to find further in can be effective, and you don't have to worry so much about how is it going to look on the desktop versus the mobile device. It's going to be pretty similar, and not the issue with sites with sidebars on smaller tablets and phones is your sidebar gets bumped to the bottom. And if you have calls to action there, people may never even get to them. So you have to think about where are you actually going to put that stuff if you want people to be able to see it on their mobile devices. And if you're working with just one column, you automatically have to think about that.
That's great. What do you think, John? Do you think I'm just grumpy now, or I just think it's just overused myself? A bit like sliders, they have their place. They're just
I mean, there's definitely times like where people specifically ask for parallax
and web design in general.
And but most often that happens like when it's not me like advising the client. I'm just saying. But it depends. I think it's just sometimes people see something and they think like we want it to be cool. And sometimes it's a client, sometimes it's the designer, and it's just like we want it to look like this because everybody else is doing it. And sure, parallax has its place, but like honestly, I'm hard pressed to find designs where if you completely removed parallax, it wouldn't make any difference, you know?
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing: is your design elements should serve your content, and if they're not making your content more effective, you know, their decoration, and you know, you might choose to keep them if they're helping to kind of create an overall atmosphere, or, you know, kind of enforce your brand image. But otherwise, you know, you are probably going to be better off without them, because, you know, it's too easy for a lot of this stuff to distract people from the
What's
content.
your feeling on, like, say, themes or sites where every single element flies in from the side or from the bottom or from the top? Or
oh God, just shoot me. You know, I don't like transitions in PowerPoint. Never mind on websites. There are times when it might make a point to have one or two, you know, moving elements, or where you have it. You know, I've seen a lot of like good uses of those little bits of video in the middle of a still picture, where you've got like, you know, it's showing the app working on a phone in a bit of a loop, and it's actually demonstrating something. But you see other places where it's just like everything is moving, and it's just, you know, going to trigger an epileptic fit.
Yeah, well, the reality, folks, and, you know, this partly comes from people see it on other sites and it's candy, and they say, oh, we want some candy. And part of it comes from maybe inexperienced developers or people. So that's the latest thing you can do with CSS or whatever. So in it goes. I think I'll tell you what the real skill is. If you got something complicated and you got to try and explain it on a website, and you know you've only got like 20 seconds to get them engaged and get them to understand.
You pretty much need to be able to fit it on an Instagram. You know, so.
Their attention span is not much now, is it, Sally? And you got to really work on the text, the image, and that's where the skill comes in, explaining something that you need to explain quickly and effectively.
It is definitely a challenge. I think people sometimes underrate the importance of the copywriting.
It's also the visual layout, the actual layout, how the copy works with the imaging. And what the imaging, does the imaging reinforce the copy? Does the copy reinforce the imaging? There's a lot of things. I agree.
The content. I mean, like, people are coming for a message. They're coming for information.
What do you reckon about that, John?
And the design is really just there to call attention to that and help produce the result. The content is like what's inside the package, and the design is like the package itself. I mean, the package is important, but if you don't have like a well-honed message, and you don't have like a plan for like how each page is like leading people in a certain direction, then it's gonna be sound and fury signifying nothing. So yeah, for real.
Yeah, I'm gonna finish up with this, and I'll Sally. You've seen this before, John, but Sally hasn't. Got this link here, Sally. Go and click it and have a look at the MailRite site and tell me what you think what the first page is.
I don't know, because I couldn't read it before the stupid pop-up popped up. No, I closed the pop-up, but but you know that. Oh, yeah. That pop-up thing comes in way before I can read the script that's on the that's in that top section of the site. So it's, you know, it's too fast. If you pop something up before anybody has a chance to appreciate anything enough that they might be willing to, you know, click to sign up or whatever, you know, I'm out of there.
Adios. I'll tone that down a bit. So what do you think that's about,
Well,
Sally?
it says, online referrals referral system for real estate agents. It's not entirely clear what sort of thing it is, except the product name suggests it might have to do with email. I think there are too many colors. The red and the green together are just painful to my migraine prone eyes.
Yeah. So do you got any concept of what it's probably about?
I basically had to click the learn more to be very clear about what might be involved in it, because a referral system could refer to darn near anything from going to a BNI meeting to some kind of affiliate marketing.
What do you reckon, John?
It could be just a little bit more clear. That when it says like online referral system, I would maybe say email referral system for real estate agents, and I do think maybe just limit the colors to like the yellow and the green might be good, and maybe I would almost do away with the script font.
It's kind of difficult. I would be very sparing with it, because even though that's a pretty good size for the text, it still is more work to read.
Yeah, my comments is everything both of you said are totally logical. The only I wouldn't say it's a defence, but the especially obviously the flying, I should but we've been varying with different speeds with that. But we're going to say it doesn't jump in so quickly, like what you said, Sally. It should give you a few seconds.
And you might, it was a video, right? Kind of demonstrating how it works. You might want to just embed that instead of popping it up.
Yeah, totally true. Yeah, there's something I'm going to think about. When it actually comes to the actual text, this is my position. It's really fundamentally the wording is really aimed at the target industry. The actual person, the Joe public that will go to this ain't going to buy the product. It's people in the real estate industry. So the wording
right. Well, I think just about any business that you're in, repeats and referrals are really important. But I wonder if you just want to kill that complete online referral system headline and start with that. Did you know that 72% of your business is from repeats? And then the call to action button, or even then it kind of gives you some here's how to get more referrals, and then the video or something like that. Because it's the actual wording of the text I think is fine in terms of getting attention. But you may want to know. I mean, people may say, I want more referrals. I don't really care what type of system you're trying to sell me. I just want to get more referrals, or more repeat business. And so it may not matter that much that it isn't immediately clear what kind of a product it is. I think you've done a good job of making it clear who it's for.
Yeah, because most of the traffic has been driven or comes from them talking to somebody else. It's not going to be traffic that comes from general SEO. What I mean from general SEO, they've got to be in that industry. So the wording, the actual title, that's a difficult one because some people either like that font choice or really hate it. But I've tried to keep it to the global sense, and then the actual color scheme, like I say, I understand that maybe I would have to look at the color choices because there might be too many. Do you mind having a click on the feature button on the top?
Features. Well, once you get to that page, it makes it much clearer what you're offering.
The video does as well, Sally. So maybe look
and
at
just putting it in there because
and have it
people's
embedded.
assumption is that your pop-up is trying to sell you something which is, not necessarily directly related to what they're reading. Your two oranges clash here on the page. The one for the heading and the one for the phone number in the header.
Yeah. Right. So what do you think the free products
So it says,
are?
email marketing, social media updates, online reputation. I'm not sure precisely what the online reputation one does because, there's a bunch of things that could fall under that. But, it's email marketing, social media marketing. I think those are things that people, even if they're not, eyeball deep in the industry, are going to have some sense, exists and is important in this day and age.
So do you think from those 3 bits of text and the layout that it's partly around email marketing,
right?
social
Where
media,
if I read it, it talks about reviews, and maybe you want something like great reviews and testimonials instead of improve your online reputation, because pretty much everybody knows what a review or a testimonial is.
Yeah. Do you mind just finish off by clicking the button under automatic social media updates to learn more?
I think you might want to increase the text size on those buttons.
I would just.
It seems very small relative to your
more now.
Relative to your body text.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're on that 3rd page, stay in touch and save time. What do you think with a quick scan, what do you think that's about?
Well, it says it's automating the information that's shared, and it's not entirely clear where that information is coming from. Are you writing that for them? Are you pulling it out of some of their other content? It says, you never have to spend your time researching or writing social media content. And I would wonder a little bit, how that does. It says automatically post relevant real estate content to your Twitter account. Are you just sort of scraping the web for real estate news? How specific is it going to be? I don't know whether my questions are the questions that one of your potential clients would have.
Well, that's the difficult thing, but what I'm definitely going to look at is the size of the button, the wording that John's just said on the button, your remark about relook at the color scheme a little bit and look at the video being actually implanted into the front page. Where the problem comes, Sally, is the reason why I've done this, folks, is not obviously get some of, because Sally hasn't seen it, so I was just interested on an initial reaction to it. But obviously, because of her profession, she really delves into the detail where it's aimed at real estate agents. So you've got to really appeal to the things that really their concerns are. So it's a project that's we're ever working on. And what the reason why I'm just pointing out, I've been working on this for months and months and months, and it never stops. And you just keep working, irritating, working, asking people to look at it, redo it, test it.
Well, what do you see on sites for competing products?
I'll give you one now. I see a very mixture where what we were discussing before I put Mel right up to have you look at it, Sally, with your own website and John's. It's this where obviously your site your client site, they're
right,
real
and they're
estate
aiming mainly
developers, are
at
they not?
people who would, not people who would live in the buildings, but people who would help finance them.
Yes. So they devote and their target are the people that will finance it. With John's client, John, it's a company that does wholesaling
Catering.
and retail
So
and one
they have
other
basically
thing,
three
wasn't it?
different types of
I'm going to get a caller
Shoot,
in.
it's
Actually,
not
this
Seamus
can always be
Alberto.
fun. So
It is
just,
I, Seamus
this is
Alberto.
part of Blab, Sally. Hello. Pardon?
Hi, Seamus.
I'm Irish Mexican.
Nice to meet you, Seamus. You got any questions or anything?
Yeah, indeed.
Interesting combination.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Yeah,
So
I'm just wondering.
have you got any
when
observations
two gay
or
guys
questions,
have sex,
Seamus?
How does the one gay guy know
Go on, fire away.
this is going to open up to accept the other gay guys?
Yeah. There you go. See,
Yes,
he's going to be banned forever. See, he's banned
such children.
forever, and he still
that's
wants
his
to
problem,
get in,
right.
Sally, but he's banned forever.
Yes,
He's,
well, I
he's
noticed
gone
it's
forever, Sally.
10:59. So
yeah, it's maybe time to end this. But what I was saying, just to finish off, Sally, the text is trying to get across, and like the two websites from you and John, I'm trying to word this in the right way because they've got their challenges. You know, you're trying to get across that the value of the food company, and you're trying to get across the value of the developer for its target audience, where I'm trying to explain a multi-level software product that has 4 different elements, and I'm trying to get that across in the most simplest way.
right. Well, and so I think you have to kind of focus on, and you've definitely got some way to it in terms of your copy, but it seems like you have the fact that you need to stay in touch. You need to seem relevant and valuable. These 3 tools help you do that, and they help you save time doing it.
I'll just show you quickly. There's a company called Happy Grasshopper.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll finish off with that because, well, maybe we leave. Actually, I think you're right. We're coming to 11, aren't we? And
Yes.
I think I think it's time to call this a blab finish. And we had our little. That's
right. It's no show is complete without a troll.
Yeah, I was taking a risk there. You're always taking a risk by letting people. That's part of the joy of it, isn't it, John?
Oh yeah.
So,
Yes.
John,
I like the Happy Grasshopper site, except some of the fonts are too small.
But we maybe look at that some other time.
Yes, let's talk about it maybe next week.
All right, Ed. Thank you so much, Sally. You've been a great joy on the show, and you've given a load of good information. I think we covered everything around backup, didn't we? And
until the next product is invented.
Yeah, and David was great. It's great to see David again. And thanks, folks. I'm sorry about the troll, but that goes with the territory. He's gone forever. He's blocked forever. But at least he wasn't French, Sally.
It's true. We had a.
I should have known that there was something. I knew that was going to happen. Actually, I was just waiting for it. John, do you want to have a quick chat after this?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
Let's do it on Skype. So here's my Skype name. I'm not sure if you were joined in, so just put it in there. So it's Jonathan.Denwood. All the trolls out there, don't try and join me on Skype because I'm not gonna accept your invite. So don't even bother. There we go. We'll be back with more WordPress kind of fun, delving deep next Saturday at 9:00. Please join us. I'm sure some of my friends in the WordPress community will wake up and be ready to join me. See you next week. I'm going to stop the recording.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.